Hello and welcome to the Navy Blue Corner. I'm Ian, joined as always by my good mate Lockie, and we had our first taste of football for the 2023 season with Carlton defeating Collingwood by 10 points in, look, it's just a practice match, but it was a lovely sunny day at Icon Park. So Lockie, I have to kick this off and ask this big question.
Okay.
Is the lid off?
that's actually how I was gonna lead into it. I'm like, the lid is off, and I'm also like a little underwhelmed by yesterday as well.
Yeah.
Even though it was a W. I don't know. Is your lid well and truly flying across the room?
No, my lid is well and truly still on. I don't think I got even near the container that had the lid on it in the first place. It was just a practice game. I wasn't getting too excited, but it's obviously just great to be back. And so I guess I'll start this before we get into the game itself. I guess, Lockie, was there anything in particular that you were looking for before the game did start, whether it was watching a particular player, part of our game style? What was it that you were sort of hoping to see or get out of the practice match itself?
Well, the first thing I was trying to get out of this practice match was some mingling with the Carlton community. So I was bloody shattered when I messaged you and realized that the VFL curtain raiser was not a curtain raiser. It was after. So I couldn't go. So I had extreme FOMO of you catching up with all the good Twitter folk. So that was sad.
Definitely.
But the game itself, I mean, we knew we weren't going to be taking too much from this. I guess it was, I was looking for who is actually going to be on the park. Like, is there any other little injuries being managed that we aren't aware of, or who do they feel is good to go? And I guess that who, to the other side, who was going to be playing in the VFL team, like who might be that kind of step below that we might not be expecting. I guess that, and then also just the positional thing. Doherty was a big one. Who was going to get the wing time was something that people were thinking about. So, those questions were answered. Not to say that they're locked in for round one or anything.
No, I totally agree. It's the toughest thing. Like you want to go in, you don't really care about the result too much, but when it's Collingwood, you kind of do. In fact, like when it started to get close at the end, I think we're all going like, oh, look, it is preseason, but God, you still want to beat Collingwood. Like if there's one team to beat, it's definitely them. And yeah, I think for me, it was really looking at the players I don't know. And it was kind of the same when I went to one of the open trainings as well. Like I know what I'm getting from Cripper and the like, Harry, Charlie, all that. But it's the players I haven't necessarily seen at Carlton, the Ollie Hollands, the Blake Acres, those kind of guys, Lockie Cowan. Like what are they like, particularly now we're coming up against, an AFL opposition? How do they mingle at the level, particularly with that sort of Zach Williams injury and a few spots up for grabs? Yeah. What are they going to do? Is there anything to really grab from it? And I don't want to go too hard, on them positively or negatively, because it was one hit out and it didn't look like anyone was taking it ridiculously seriously. But I think there was still some good takeaways. So with that, Lockie, what excited you from that game and what were your sort of key takeaways?
Yeah, it's good. I think Motlop was one for me.
Yes.
I don't want to just be reiterating what I've seen from others on socials after this, but I guess he was one that has been a lot of people's pick for like big improver. He's hardly played, could take that leap. And while he wasn't hitting the scoreboard, it just the energy that he was bringing was great, getting up the ground, using the ball well. I thought that was a really positive sign. And then additionally, kind of what you just touched on then, like Blake has proved that, yes, he's going to be good to go round one. He's a best 22 guy. And then it proved to me as well that like Hollands and Cowan, like they are definitely going to get a look in. May not be round one, but like they're definitely going to be able to have the impact this year, like Motlop did last year.
Yeah, no, Motlop was definitely one of those standout players. As you said, he's been so hyped in his off season, but what he showed was just those glimpses. And that's kind of the best thing you can take from those games is those little bits of passages of play where he's just using his speed and skill. And a bit's been spoken about his tank and ability to potentially maybe pinch hit in that midfield in a few years. And I think you kind of saw his ability to push high up from that high half forward, influence the contest and get the ball out for us. And it's been an issue, that ball transition, having that pace around the contest. We know we've got Kennedy, Hewitt, Cripper, those hard contested guys, but it's who's complementing that. So I'm excited to see more of what we can get from Motlop, because we spoke about it in our sort of season preview. We need these smalls to start to influence the contest to kick more goals. And he's that one that everyone's kind of put their high hopes on. So it was good to get a little glimpse of that. And it was positive. It wasn't like there was all this hype for nothing. There was definitely something good to come from that. And then, I think you've nailed it. Like the biggest thing for me, particularly being at the game and being able to sort of see the full ground and see what that awful, slowly swinging camera wasn't being able to capture. It wasn't in HD, and we'll get to the KO coverage at some stage, but
oh no,
the wingers were big for me. Like just the way that they were able to cover the ground. It was the contrast from last season where it was kind of like O'Brien and Cottrell doing bits of it, but no one was really nailing it. Seeing like an Akers out there and what he brings, it's clear, like you said, just the difference in what a seasoned player who knows what that role is can do. And then like Hollands again, just stand out. Like it was stand out for me in the open training, stand out again today. He always seems to be able to find the ball. And I always think for a winger, like the big thing where you know that they're good and they're good at covering that ground is when you find them in like the back and forward pockets because they've been able to run the whole way. And there were times where he was the deepest player that we actually had on the field in defense. And as soon as, Collingwood won the ball and then we won it back, it was immediately switched over to him and he was always there in space. And I thought O'Brien as well, another one that needs to get touched on. Like all three of those were excellent in being that outlet outside for when we were looking to transition the ball. And I think that was just a really big positive for me. Finally seeing some wingers in this team.
Yeah, 100%. No, I agree. That all kind of stuck out for me too. What about the kind of, call them like fringe guys?
Yeah.
What did you think of like Ed Curnow? Good to see him back again.
Yes.
Honey, Plowman even I thought did some good things. What were your takeaways from them?
I think Ed Curnow was one that I've had a little bit in my sights. I think this off season where Sammy Walsh is obviously out for the first month or so, wondering who's going to take that role. And part of me in discussions with a few other people we've turned a little bit to maybe Ed Curnow plays a bit more of a role. We know he's hard running and maybe he does a bit more of the grunt work in that midfield to allow someone else another role on the outside. And I was pleasantly surprised with what we saw from him. And it's amazing the difference now that he's actually got a midfield around him. Like before when he had to be that ball winner, when he had to be the one distributing, that's just not his strength. But now he's kind of an added bonus around that. And I had no issues at all with Ed Curnow. And if he plays games this year, I think we might be good for it. Like there was that moment where he was involved in a passage. I think it was to Motlop. And straight after we end up kicking the goal, he sprints straight over to Motlop, gets his arms around him. And it's just those little culture aspects that I really like from Ed that kind of boost you up. So I did like to see that. Honey, going to be an interesting one. Hyped him up so much the past season. Last year sort of fell flat. Looked good. Like I don't want to overhype him again now because I don't think he had like the most exceptional game, but he probably showed signs of the hype that we did have around him. And I think it might be interesting if Martin isn't fit throughout this season, obviously didn't feature in this game, will Honey maybe roll into that high half forward role? And if he can do what he did there, like a 6-7 out of 10, kick a couple of goals, I think that's all you're needing. Who are the other sort of fringe players that you wanted me to comment on?
Yeah. Plowman was the other one where, with all these three, I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if we saw any of them in round one and then equally if they weren't near it either. What's your feeling on him?
Plowman was fine. Like, again, he wasn't exceptional, didn't do anything that badly. I think he could be an interesting player this season because of that Zach Williams injury, whether we look to bring him in to maybe play a bit more defensive to allow maybe a bit more cover for a Cowan or a Sincotta, someone else to do a bit more running. I'm interested to see how that dynamic works. And it was actually quite funny. At one stage, we were having a bit of a discussion amongst ourselves at the game about Plowman, and all of us were like, don't really understand the hate Plowman gets here. And I think Webby had the great call of hyping Plowman up as he gets the ball and straight away kicks it out of bounds on the full. And that probably sums up like what was going on with us. Every time we tried to hype up a player at the game, they obviously made a mistake and made us all look like idiots. But I think Plowman, you probably don't want to have him starting because he's obviously not going to be best 22. He's that next kind of depth down. But from what I saw again, he looked strong defensively and was absolutely fine. I don't think any of these fringe players necessarily will take that massive step this year and be like best 22. But if they can just play their role, which seems to be kind of what we were talking about last year, that next man up, play your role, that's how you win premierships, really. So I think if they can play at an okay standard, we'll be fine.
Yeah, completely agree. That was, I guess, the point of that for me. That if any of those guys do have to play some minutes, it's not going to be an issue for me.
Yeah, definitely. And was there anything else that kind of caught your eye? Because I thought like the big thing this offseason has been ball movement and transition. Did you see much difference in this game at all?
I mean, I was a little frustrated, especially early on with the inside 50 entries. I don't know if you guys were talking about that at the game.
Yeah.
Just in a game where there's clearly less pressure, I feel like they're the times where you'd hope that it's a bit more targeted. And it felt like Collingwood were doing that, especially when they went on that run. It just felt like they were damaging every time they went in. And a very different perspective as well, watching it on that beautiful KO coverage that I had compared to you at the game, where it just felt like there was so many times we were going to a 3-on-1, or going really wide to a 2-on-1. It's like, they're the kind of things that in a practice game, I hope we get better looks.
No, I think you've nailed that. That was definitely a big talking point amongst us at the game. Like we thought the ball movement looked better at stages. We definitely looked to move it quick, get those handballs. There was a lot of those quick 45 kicks inboard with those wingers being able to stay wide and create an option. A lot of times there was that switch of play, or we had an option wide. That was really good. I didn't feel at times we really just went back to the Carlton of old of, okay, hold the ball for 10 minutes, long down the line. Hold the ball for 10 minutes.
Agree.
Long down the line. It looked like there was a bit of change in that. But the big negative, if there was one, was still probably that final third play and execution. Firstly, it's the conversion in front of goal. Like we had so many looks, and it's a preseason game. So do you get too critical about it all? But I think we spoke in our preview. Like we want to be that team that finishes games off early, like put the game to bed, give the team opposition no chance of getting back into it, really foot on the throat, game's done. And like we could have done that to Collingwood multiple times, but we just didn't kick the goals. We didn't finish it. And then when we did get the ball, transition it up to that final third, the entry inside 50 wasn't amazing. As you said, there was multiple times where it was like, there's like 3 Collingwood players and we sort of kick it to the Carlton player in between them. Intercepted a fair few times. And an interesting one that I noticed being at the game, then I'm not sure how it's actually going to go throughout the year, but I noticed a lot of the time, like a Harry in particular had pushed up super, super high up the ground, almost like occupying that wing spot at times. And that was good because we had almost him as an outlet, but then Harry was the one like running with the ball, trying to enter it into 50. And that for me was a little bit of an issue. I'm going like, he's looked up and there's no one to kick to. Like he's the only one there. And it probably goes back to what has been an issue for us, or what feels like an issue, where it's so many times it almost, it feels whenever we have the ball, we try so hard to get our goals. And then immediately the opposition, it's like they have 10 guys out the back and they easily score a goal. And it's like, we've spent 20 minutes trying to get one. We got one, and then you get one within 2 seconds. So I think that's still something that needs to be worked on. Because, there was multiple times we had the ball, we were out, and there was like 4 Collingwood players ready in defense and no one to kick to. So I think, that's another element to work on. But again, it is just preseason. There is still time to solve this. And maybe there were elements that we were, trying to nail other components, and that wasn't something that we were looking at, or whether we tried something different and we've now got the footage to say, okay, this is where the issue is. This is how we need to fix it. But I guess we might see a bit more in that next game against Sydney. Yeah,
no, I could. Yeah, spot on. I'm definitely don't want to be critical of it, but it was just like, it's kind of like you're more relaxed in the preseason, so that's why you're missing those goals. But also, it's basically like training, having these shots on goal, and also just some of the goals that come to mind were just so kind of unconvincing. Like Harry's one in the square, it was like there was four guys there. He had no right to get that ball. And Fisher's like no look, right foot snap,
Yeah.
3 Collingwood players, but Hewitt somehow ends up with it. It's like, oh, okay. Like, don't know if these goals would actually happen in a proper game, but yeah.
There was definitely a lot of that, almost like being too cute in the final third. And I feel like Fisher was probably one of the main culprits. I didn't think he had a great game, but you know, we've seen the best of Fish anyway, so I'm not reading too much into it. But there was a lot of time where, yeah, you'd get the ball and it's either just like put it to the top of the square, get the hands off, or go for the goals. And it was like, okay, I'll handball to you. And then what will you do? Oh, I'll handball to the next guy. And it's like, there's too much pressure, boys. Like this happens in a final. You're just going to turn the ball over. Like you can't be cute under pressure in your goal, in your forward 50. You've got to be a lot smarter. So I think that's still the work in progress. But if they can nail that, like you've got Harry kicking 3-4 goals. You've got Charlie who can kick a bag. Like you get the ball in there fast enough, it's going to be amazing. And with the evolution of these small forwards, that's definitely a big upside. Was there any other sort of main talking points at all that you sort of saw from this game at all?
I think the one other thing that I'm just kind of watching is like the TDK factor.
Yes.
Because it kind of feels like, to me at least, the AFL community is kind of rating him higher than the Carlton fans are. So I'm putting my expectations a little bit higher for him. I'm expecting a jump from him this season. And, you know, we're going to talk about it more in our Best 22 episode. But spoiler, I'm still of the belief that Pitt and him can work in the same team and that TDK is going to be able to add more of that forward line ability.
Yeah.
So I was happy with how he went about it yesterday. I felt like he was trying quite hard and obviously had a few highlights, but I'm optimistic that he is going to be able to hit those heights, those high heights that we'd set for him early on. And in the last year, it kind of feels like they've been cooled a little bit.
Yeah, he definitely started the game hot. Like I remember the first 5 minutes, everyone was going, can someone, you know, get the contract and run this out to him right now so we can get him signed up for the next 10 years? But probably, and it's hard to know, like everyone's on managed minutes and things like that, but it felt like he really did dip after probably that first quarter or so. And like I know Murkoff definitely got a bit more of a run late, and I mean, you can touch on him if we want to. He was fine, but I still think he's obviously needs a lot more before we're definitely seeing him in that best 22 at AFL level. The 2 rucks is still something I'm very unsure of. I think I want to see Pitt and TDK in there and just what they can do at times. When TDK floats around the ball, like he's so good at trying to take mark of the year every time, and he seems to nail so many of them that it does give me hopes that he can float down into that forward line. But you're almost going to need that other ruckman to be doing a lot more as well when they're involved. And Murkoff probably wasn't that, but maybe Pitt can be. But yeah, I think high expectations now for De Koning. Him or Pittnet, one of them has to stand up this year, like both out of contract. We've got to figure out by the end of this season which one of these is our number one, and then what are we doing with the other? Because I don't think, and maybe this goes back to how I'm sitting with the 2 ruckmen, I don't think it's the best long-term solution with those 2 in particular. Maybe this is a hot take that we should be saving for the next episode, but I feel as if we've almost got to select one of them and then decide. Like, I don't want to be going into next season and it's still being like, which one's the number one ruckman? How's it going to fit? Like, there needs to be no question marks on our ruck department and how it's all going to sit going in definitely into next season. So I think this year is a big one for both of them.
No, I agree. I guess for me, the optimism is just about the sample size that we've seen of them properly playing together. Yeah, we can get more into the best 22 because I've got some ammunition prepared for you. So it sounds like we might have a little bit of an argument, which is a bit off-brand, which is good. Tune in.
It's about time. I want to see, some fists flying across these screens amongst the 2 of us. But look, the only other thing I think I really noticed that we probably haven't touched on, which is maybe a bit weird because I think one of these players that I mentioned was probably best on ground for us. And that was the midfield in itself. And that was, Adam Chera. He's someone that I am pretty high on for this season, hoping that he can take that little next step. We probably didn't see the best of him last year and what we probably expected for him to come across from Freo with Walsh out and what we saw in that round 23 game. I think he's started back on what we saw in that back end of last year. Really exciting stuff. He was around everything, silky with his handball, good ball movement. And then, Kennedy and Hewitt for me as well. Just everyone, it seemed like I kept hearing this from everyone that was bumping into us was, gee, we would have won those last 2 rounds if we had both of those guys out there. And it was just like, we would have. Like, obviously, whole other discussion. We've finished that chat for now, but like, just, I think Hewitt is like my favorite player now. Just the way he goes about it, that just tough footballer, 9 out of 10 every single week. Oh, and what him and Kennedy were doing, it just gets me excited about just the potential of what we can do. That beautiful clearance where Kennedy like rolls off the opponent and then just launches it. I'm like, oh, this is what I'm excited about for this season. This midfield with that cripper little on his hands and knees shovel out.
Yeah,
there's so much to like about that midfield crop, and I'm hoping they can all just gel a bit more this year, and every single one of them just keeps firing.
Yeah, no, that's a great takeaway. And maybe I'll hit you with a little bit of a hot take here. And I have no data to back this up, but there's just something about, I love having Chera in the CBAs. There's just something about when it's Cripps, Hewitt, and Kennedy as the 3. I just don't love it. It just doesn't feel like the right mix to me. So my ideal is 2 of those 3, and then you got Chera or Walsh, or even Doc brings something different in there, which I'm still kind of excited about us tinkering with that. But we've got a lot of different combinations that we can work with, which is very exciting. Like 6 elite guys that can roll through there. We're pretty privileged.
Yeah, we've definitely come a long way in that space. And I agree. I think that you need like 2 of them, and then you need that more like outside kind of guy, whether it's Chera, Walsh, whether that's even a Doherty. I think just the way he disposes the ball out of those CBAs, gets it forward. A Fisher at times, probably didn't see that in this game, which I'm maybe interested how that plays out, whether they don't see him being in there a lot or whatever it is. But I think sometimes we see the best out of Fisher when he does pinch hit in there and add a bit of a spark for 5 minutes. So, yeah, I mean, there's still so many question marks going into this season around who starts where. And one of those is that halfback Zach Williams spot. What did you make of your sort of first glimpse of Lockie Cowan and Sin Cotter into that role? Were you impressed with them at all?
Yeah, for sure. Particularly Cowan. I think there's definitely something there. Like, he was composed. He's a bit different to the other guys that we've got back there. Like, look, I can see why you've made the early call of him being your man, because and like I said earlier, I think there's no doubt in my mind that he will impact this season at some point. And if he did get the go for round 1, I would support that as well. Sincotta, sure, didn't blow me away, but I think he showed enough as to why he deserved to, be with this group. And again, I could see him getting a go this year.
Yeah, I mean, interesting. I mean, this is a disagreement. I actually thought maybe I'm in the wrong. Maybe others disagree. So let us know in the comments. Tweet at us, whatever it is, wherever you're listening to this. Who do you have as the number 1 out of Chin Cotter and Cowan? Because I have Sin Cotter higher actually from that game.
As in slightly. Going into the season, you mean, or from just this game?
Like from that game, and as currently as it stands, I have him over him, which is interesting. I thought that his attack and hunger was something that I really, really did like. Thought he was skillful with the ball. I was a bit more impressed, and maybe it was because my expectation was a little bit lower on him going into the game. That might have been it, so he exceeded a little bit higher. But I was really impressed with how he was able to go at the level, because I get it. He's 26, is that little bit older, but it's almost when you've been at a lower standard for so long, trying to then jump up. How difficult is that leap? Because you've almost gotten used to what that lower level is and the pace of it. But I thought that he definitely added that attack and hunger. And then, I mean, Cowan definitely showed the highlight reel. Like, he obviously has that higher ceiling, that absolute turn out and 80-meter bomb down to, I think it was Harry that takes the mark. You're just that is why he could be genuine superstar, because of those little things that he has above others. But maybe if you're wanting that slightly more experienced, slightly more ready, I think Sincotter's got that. But I mean, it's going to be an interesting battle to see who takes out that spot, because I think both really did well and put their hand up, and good luck making a selection out of those two.
So are you calling it now? Is Sincotta going to be playing round 1, you reckon?
I think at the moment, yes, I have him over, probably because I have Hollins in there, and this might be stupid, but I think only maybe one sort of under 18 sort of debut for those guys, and then have a bit more of that experienced body in Sincotta down back.
I like it. Exciting. Plenty of options.
It definitely is. And look, I'm going to pivot slightly, maybe slightly away from the game itself, even though it was a feature of this game. And look, I haven't really brought this up with you, Lockie, so I'm going a little bit rogue, but
I love it.
There's a segment that I'd love to launch. And look, because I found the perfect example of what I want from this segment. I guess we'll see if it sticks. This may not even make the air. This may not ever be seen again. It might be a one and done, but I've got the confidence in it. So I'm hoping that can come out. And the segment is the Navy Blue Corner Hall of Fame. The basic premise of this, each week we find something somewhat footy related and we induct it into the Hall of Fame. Now, this isn't a match-winning goal. I don't want to see your Jack Nunes goals. I don't want to see an absolute screamer. I want something a lot more niche. I want something a bit stupid, bit weird, funny that you've spotted at the game. It could be a fan in the crowd. It could be something part of the game. But this was the perfect way to launch this. And so, look, Lockie, as it is, the Hall of Fame.
Here we go.
We've got to, spruce things up a little bit. The tie's on. The tie is on here. We're getting very fancy for this. Oh, mate, we've got to go all out for this segment. If I'm launching this thing now, I've got to go all out. So it's a
very
fancy,
suave.
Mate, maybe should have gone black tie for the event. Maybe we'll do that in the future. But
this is pre-season, mate. We're warming up. Gee, this is big.
It is, because I would like to induct the inaugural inductee into the Navy Blue Corner Hall of Fame. Is whatever was going on with Ed Curnow and that sunscreen. That was the best thing I have ever seen. Like, the man looked like a ghost out there. I could not believe my eyes. I hope you've seen it. If you haven't, I'm going to put it on the screen now, but there is a big, warning on this one, because if there's any kids out there, you may get nightmares from what you're about to witness. Now, what is Ed Curnow? Like, I'm all about being sun smart. There's being sun smart, and then there's almost doing whiteface. I don't know what that is, but do we? Because look, I'm looking at this. I love it. Love to see it. Ed is a character at the best of times, but maybe I'm going too deep into this. Could this almost be a thing going forward? Like, whether the sun's out or not. Night game at Marvel, roof shut. Ed Curnow got the sunscreen on head to toe and almost use it like as an intimidation tactic. We've got New Zealand doing the haka before the game. Ed Curnow, first centre bounce with that sunscreen on. I reckon that's going to horrify some opposition. What do you reckon about our first inductee into the Hall of Fame?
A very worthy inductee, that's for sure. I've got some thoughts off the top of my head here. It's been a big summer for sunscreen for me.
Yes.
It's been a real focal point of my summer. And the issue that I have, which I feel like could be part of Ed's tactics here, is I'm shocking at making sure it's all rubbed in. I've always got little bits somewhere, and it's like someone will point it out, like, oh, you didn't rub it in behind your ear or whatever. If you just go all in with the lather, there's no missing anything. This is who I am.
You can't miss it if you haven't even tried.
Exactly. So that could be something that I might try and implement. The other thing is, I feel like, when was the last time we saw him on the park? I feel like this could just be his once off. Like, what can I do to make sure the footy world remembers that I'm still here? And this was his tactic. It could have been anything, but he went with the full sunscreen face. This is going to get some memeage. I'm back.
Look, I think this could be the new fluoro boots, because back then that was a way to highlight your skills, stand out with all the recruiters and things like that. But now everyone's got the fluoro boots. The full white sunscreen face is the best way to stand out. Maybe this is a hot take, but if he's able to do that every week, could we see a Brownlow medal just because the umpire's like, well, all I can remember was Ed Curnow. I just kept seeing that face around me. And maybe that's a smart way to do it. But yes, hopefully that is a segment that sticks around. We'll all see. Maybe next week we'll have Lockie in the full suit, full tuxedo, ready for the launch to see what he's bringing to it. But this is one I want you guys listening to get involved as well. If you see something stupid, weird throughout the week, footy related, again, I don't want it to be the big moments. I want it to be something stupid. So let us know if you've got anything you can enter into the Hall of Fame, because almost, I'll take the tie off, because almost pivoting to end this, we've almost got to talk about the Hall of Shame, because if we're going to do an inductee,
Can I ask you one quick question just on the segment, please? Just a question from the Peanut Gallery here. Is there what's the long-term plan of this? Are we going to have like a Hall of Fame of the year? Like, is there going to be a countdown?
That could be
what
it.
are we thinking?
That you've clearly, expecting too much of me to think I've got this fully pledged manifesto plan around this segment. I'm going week in, week out for this one, but I think there is a potential to have a Hall of Famer of the year, or maybe we even have a ceremony. We get Ed Curnow down and hand him that sunscreen for the ceremony itself. But it's very up to the listeners, up to us to figure this one out. But very soft launch. But as I was saying, we've probably touched on this a little bit. But if we're having a Hall of Shame, it's going on to whatever KO have done here with their preseason stuff, and it's all round because I sent out a tweet that some people may have seen about the coverage, and I had multiple people start to talk to me about different games. They didn't realize I was talking about the Carlton Collingwood game because other games have been just as bad. But I mean, firstly, you've got you're telling me in 2023, no one can get an HD camera at the ground. I mean, the AFLW have one. We're being pretty cheap and stingy with that because know your market firstly. You've got the only people that are watching this one are your diehard supporters that if, your team's playing a game of markers up in bloody Bangladesh and some 14-year-olds filming it and putting it on Twitch, we're watching it. We're that diehard. We'll watch anything. And the only other people that are watching this are your fantasy Supercoach obsessed. So, we want a bit of quality on this, and we particularly want quality when it comes to commentating. Because my word, what did we have to listen to there? I feel sorry for you that actually just could only watch it on the KO stream. If you, I don't want to go too harsh, but if you're gonna have an AFLW player from Collingwood there, that's fine. Yeah. Go for it. Get that bag, chase your dreams, go for the broadcast and stuff. I'm all for it. But maybe just, don't be completely biased and stop calling players by their nicknames every 2 seconds. I think that was what was doing my head in Coxie gets it out. Oh, that was really lovely there from Tommy. Oh, Tommy, mate, his name's Tom Mitchell. Have an ounce of professionalism. And I think the one that rocked me, I get it, still side on him. That's fine. Great player. Maybe call him Sidey if you're going to go there. She called him Steelo. Oh, Steelo, mate. It's like that one person that's pretends that and tries to make out that they're mates with everyone and starts using the nicknames in the group. And it's mate, you don't know these people. Stop acting like you're mates with them. It was embarrassing, I'll be honest. And I think we sort of mentioned a little bit before we started recording. I think you nailed it, Lockie. If you're going to have the biased Collingwood person, get the biased Carlton one in there. You may as well have just had Swoop Luke in the bloody commentary box because it was just a Collingwood fest. Get someone else in there to just start spruiking Carlton and go and have a back and forth. That would liven up the commentary box for a preseason game, I reckon. Get the fans in there.
Firstly, you said...
I'm ready for this. I tried to scoop through that one.
Okay. Firstly, you said I'm not going to go too hard. We've been here for about 8 minutes talking about this. I thought I was listening to bloody Caro's Arrow or something here.
Yeah.
So is this going to be a new segment as well? You absolutely launching against someone.
It feels like it already has been a segment throughout the long podcast here. It seems like
I guess it has.
There is an abuse coming someone's way from myself, and unfortunately, it goes towards the commentary team in this one. I don't know. It felt like we weren't even out there at one stage. It was bad. So that one. Yeah. That one is all I want to talk about on that one, even though I've spoken for about 30 minutes on it. But
no, I mean the main takeaway. The main takeaway for me on that is just. You tweeting on your personal account again and getting some traction. I know. Normally, if you've got a big one, it's let me get the Navy Blue Corner account out. We got all the followers there, get some traction. But you're no, this is going to deliver on the personal. Congrats, mate, getting some good numbers.
Look, the reason I did was I was a little bit wary of abuse coming back my way. Is this a bit too controversial? I was I'll save the safe stuff for the podcast one, and I'm happy to cop the abuse my way. But look,
I respect that.
We got the win, which was great to see. We didn't bottle it this time, which I know there was a lot of nervous people around, even though it was preseason. Oh no, I've seen this story again. We're not going to hold on here and win this, but we're able to get the win. Saw some positive highlights from the wingers and some of the young guys coming through. I guess the last thing I want to touch on, we've obviously got another one coming up against Sydney, a little bit more of a professional outfit. We'll have some proper coverage of this one like we did last year for that sort of Melbourne game. We hope, fingers crossed. Is there anything that you're wanting to see from the next game in particular?
That is a really hard question. You go first.
Fair enough. Always handball it back off to me. But
The 1-2.
I want to see probably Pitnet out there if he's good to go for one. He obviously gets that hit out in that twos game to get a bit more fitness before he's sort of ready to jump into the ones. As I said at the top of it, I want to see him and TDK out there. And I'm hoping that we do get a intercept defender out there. It's probably another one of those issues of not having a Marchbank or a McGovern. Clearly, we want to play with that interceptor. We've got a few of them on the list. How is that going to look? And if neither of them are available, there's been a bit of chatter about, a Sam Durden impressing in training and things like that. Do they look at bringing him in and Lewis Young plays that, interceptor third tall role? Like I want to know a bit closer to what our team's going to look like and structure towards that round one. I mean, we've still got a few injuries, so it'll be interesting to see if anyone else can make it back. Does Martin come in? What's his role look like? Durden and always missed. Still a few question marks, I guess, best 22 wise. What's that forward line look like with the smalls? So I'm excited to see the progression in maybe what we can see from those smalls, and will any others maybe stick out and kick a few goals in the preseason?
I think that's a really good point. Yesterday has given me more questions about best 22 than it did answering them. Yeah. So maybe that would be something nice for next week. Another just kind of interesting guy, I guess, is Sauce.
Yeah.
Because I can't remember if we talked about this on the air or not, but just where he's going to be sitting at the end of this season. Like if we do see that, Pitt is the number one guy, but TDK has taken that leap with kind of forward craft. Where does that kind of leave him? And he didn't impress me a whole lot yesterday. Not that, we're not judging anyone that didn't have a big game yesterday, but just let's see what he puts out there next week and whether that kind of Harry, Charlie and Sauce. Yeah, not sure whether that will be where we're at the end of the season. So give me something this week, Sauce.
Yeah, it's his goal kicking that still lets him down for me. He does a lot of good work up the ground, takes some marks, pushes up, does the little things. But if he's not kicking goals and he's missing those easy chances that he's almost a bit prone to doing, then if De Koning steps up, starts to take that role, or all the smalls are functioning really well together, definitely put some question marks on him. Another one who's out of contract at the end of the year, definitely wanting to see him sort of really cement his role in that team. And I guess we'll find out soon where that all sits. But look, that's going to wrap this episode up here. Thanks for listening. That is our first practice match done and dusted. Plenty more to come, plenty more match reviews for the season. It is good to be back. We'll see you guys next time.